Hi, welcome back. Thanks for joining me. It's Thursday, July 23rd. A lot has happened in the world of people, data, and analytics over the past week, and I'm excited because we're going to go an extra half hour today, and I think that's going to be the norm moving forward. I'm going to be joined at the bottom of the hour by Rob Sense, who's the Chief Innovation Officer at EMSI. And then at 10 a.m. Pacific time, I'm going to be joined by Ryan Hammond, who leads people analytics for Pure Storage here in the San Francisco Bay Area. So before then, I am going to set the stage for what we're going to be talking about. So I'm going to, if you're joining us for the first time, I'm going to talk about the news of the past week in our space. And then I'm going to take a question of the day, and I'm actually going to massage that a little bit to make it concise and clear for you all. And then finally, I'm going to go a little bit deeper into a topic of the week. And this week, they're going to overlap a bit because we're going to talk a lot about skills. This has been a hot topic pre-COVID, and as rightly it should, because many organizations have been struggling to define skills, to actually use them in meaningful ways to formulate talent strategies. So how they recruit and select talent externally, how they develop talent internally, and obviously if you don't have visibility into the skills that you have or that you need, then it's almost a non-starter. So it's fantastic that we have two great experts on the show today with Rob. And then at the end, Ryan Hammond also utilizes skills as well in an actual role. So with that in mind, I'm going to jump right into it. Uh, Over this past week, there has been much said about testing and the need for testing across the world and here in the United States especially. There's been a debate on, do we need more testing? Is there going to be additional funding for testing? What does that mean from our perspective as people data and analytics professionals? I have an opinion on that, which I'm going to share, and I think it translates quite well and actually creates some flags for us, but also some opportunities. And so let me explain. I have long been an advocate of the fact that we, as people analytics professionals, if we're going to put together an analytics strategy, we need a data strategy. In other words, what are the inputs into the analytics that we're doing? If we don't have clarity into what those inputs are, we're going to be, in some cases, stretching what that data is suitable to share, to suitable to shed insight into. So with that in mind, testing around COVID-19 is inadequate here in the United States. There's general consensus that that's the case. The accessibility of the testing, even if they're good tests and the tests are improving, that's good. But if we go into the ideal future state, what would that be? And I'm going to get a little scary for a second because this is what China has been pursuing and with some success. Is what is the ideal future state? Well, what if we all had an indicator going outside, a visible indicator of whether or not someone had COVID-19? And what if we knew ourselves whether or not we were elevating in probability based on our contacts and our experiences day to day of contracting the disease? The fact is, we don't have that data and we'll never have that data. But running with that model for a second, what if we had to wear a shirt or a hat that actually provided an indicator, and once we had a higher risk, that metric became, say, red, and like, okay, this person is a high risk for contracting and in turn passing the disease. And in fact, if we had it, okay, then that would be warrant quarantine. And now you're off in a place, and we all know where those people who have COVID-19 and who are contagious are. That's not going to happen. And it's not going to happen anytime soon. And I don't believe, frankly, from an ethical standpoint, it should happen. So what do we do? Well, we got to do the best we can. And what does that look like? In my view, if everybody got tested in the United States, just to isolate what's happening here in the US, for example, and we did that at a level of frequency that we knew not only who had the disease at any one point in time, but where they were, and who they were in contact with, so AKA contact tracing. Then we would have a better sense of the risks per region, and even potentially down to the individual. And as you likely know, that's what they're attempting to do in China. So they're taking cell phone data and they understand where you are relative to other people who have had the disease. And you get an indicator by color of your exposure risk. And that actually affects where you can and cannot go. So that's scary, to say the least. And the ethics around that are ever present. It's like, should this algorithm, should this data be governing what I can and cannot do as a citizen in this society? Now, the costs of not doing something like that also have to be weighed. So at the end of the day, we have an optimization problem. But here's the thing. We need the data no matter what. But we also need to be thoughtful about what we're going to do with the data once we have it. So in other words, in pursuit of data just for data's sake, without a vision and frankly some constraints on how that data is going to be used, is, in my view, a mistake. And where I get frustrated, and there's a lot of things to be frustrated about based on what's happening in U.S. These days, and in some places around the world, certainly. But here in the U.S., obviously, with the number of cases that we have, the COVID-19 virus is not being managed well. Again, I believe that would be a general consensus. So we're trying to improve, but we have this struggle because we're talking about rights and we're talking about the unavailability of testing and whether or not there's enough and all that. The facts are loud and clear. It's we don't have enough testing, and we're pursuing more. I hope there's budget allocated for more testing. I know here in California that there's a desire to do more frequent and more pervasive testing over time. If that is done, we have better data, and then the risk to individuals and societies, and to communities rather, can be better assessed and managed. So this is where I'll land on this. With better data, we have better insight. And with better insight, we have better clarity into the options that we can take to move forward, to mitigate the risk and optimize the economic prosperity of certain regions relative to the health risk in that particular geography. It is an optimization problem. It's a dynamic trade-off. In other words, we have a trade-off and it changes. The math changes over time. It is a tough problem, but we have to have a very mature conversation about how to manage this problem over time. These folks who are coming to, via the media and the popular discourse are effectively what I would call absolutionists insofar as that this is the right way, this is the wrong way. The fact of the matter is, what might be quote unquote right or wrong, or what might be optimal one time might not be optimal the next time. So we have to be open-minded and we have to learn, and we're not going to be able to learn without the data. So in the end, I'm going to offer this up, and you've seen me share this before if you've been to the show or if you heard me present at a conference. But if we're going to have an analytic strategy, we need to have a data strategy. And that's what testing is here in the United States and frankly around the world, is we have to understand not only what that data is and what that data is not, in other words, the quality thereof, and how we're going to use it downstream. So there's much more to share about this. This is setting the stage for our discussion with our guests, but we're going to take a short commercial right now. And when we come back, we're going to talk about skills.